A very good noon to all of you. Today we have with us Dr. Meghanshu Vashisht, who is presently serving in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT BHU, as an associate professor since 2016. Sir has done his Bachelor of Engineering in 1997 in Production and Industrial Engineering from Government Engineering College, Kota, now University College of Engineering, Rajasthan Technical University. Sir has done his master's in welding engineering from University of Roorkee, now called IIT Roorkee, in the year 2000, and his PhD in machining from IIT Kharagpur in 2010. Sir has also completed his postdoctorate in material characterization during 2011 to 12 from Newcastle University in United Kingdom. He was also a visiting researcher there for 1 year under Boys Cast Fellowship Program. Sir has about 19 years of teaching and research experience and around 45 international research articles of high repute and 18 conference proceedings. Sir has guided 6 PhD students and presently guiding 6 more PhD students and has supervised 17 students for completion of their masters and 4 are still ongoing. Sir is the reviewer of many international journals like Journal of Cleaner Production Elsevier, Journal of Materials Engineering and Performance ASM International, Materials Performance and Characterization ASTM International, International Journal of Systems Assurance Engineering and Management Springer, etc. Sir has 4 research projects to his credit funded by DST and IIT BHU. Sir is also a member of various professional associations like Fellow of the Institution of Engineers India, member of the Indian Institute of Metals, Indian Welding Society, Indian Institute of Welding, Indian Society for Non-Destructive Testing, and member of Mechanical Engineering Society in IIT BHU. Sir has also got various recognitions like DST project for young scientists under Fast Track scheme in the year 2010 and Boys Cast Fellowship for 1 year by DST India in 2011. His area of expertise are machining, grinding, welding, and material characterization. Sir is now going to deliver his talk on material characterization itself. So welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Debasmita. I am also thankful to you for inviting me and we at UT Burla, the
You're
team
most
of
welcome.
yes. So without any wasting time, I am starting my presentation. I am going to share my presentation. If you are having any problem, if I am not properly audible or if my presentation is not clear, you can interrupt me. So my topic of talk will be material characterization. Typically, whenever we say material characterization, that indicates that our talk will be either on metallurgical aspect basis or it will be on material science. But let me clear you, I am not going to discuss any metallurgical aspect during this talk. I am not going to discuss any material science, deep material science during this talk. It will be simply a metal characterization, and talk will be on a metal characterization technique that will be very useful for us. Us means I am counting mechanical engineer. Okay. So it will be very useful technique for mechanical engineering, and what are the advantage and what are the disadvantage of this technique, I will discuss during my talk. So metal characterization is very important field for various category of engineering like metallurgy, like material science or mining itself and mechanical engineering also. That discussion during this talk will be based on mechanical engineering aspect, because in mechanical engineering we are having 4 specialization. First is machine design part, second is thermal and fluid engineering, third is manufacturing engineering, and fourth is the industrial management. So in mechanical engineering, manufacturing is very important, and this technique deals with manufacturing parts or uh, judging the quality of component that has been produced by any kind of manufacturing process. Material characterization is also very important in manufacturing engineering. Why it is very important? The subject in this slide, it is having material characterization in manufacturing engineering. So we will discuss what is the importance of material characterization in manufacturing engineering, why it is required, can we produce a component with requisite quality without material characterization, or can we control the quality of manufactured product without going into material characterization? That we will see. What is material characterization? How it is related with the quality of manufactured product in a manufacturing industry? That we will see. So let us continue with material characterization. We all know that material characterization indicates analysis of microstructural state of a component. Micro hardness variation are also assessed during characterization of material. Why variation occurs in material during manufacturing? Because sometimes we carry out our process over the top surface of the material, bulk material or the substrate or the remaining material, the process that is going to be carried out at the top surface of the material. And if the plastic deformation or amount of heat generation is concentrated only in the top surface of the workpiece, then the top surface of the workpiece will have different micro hardness, as well as I can say it is having different microstructure in comparison to the remaining bulk material. That is why micro hardness variation will come into picture, because the top surface micro hardness will be significantly different from the bulk material. The surface roughness is mainly carried out only at the top surface. It is not the property of bulk material, it is the property of the top surface of the workpiece that is coming from any machining shop. So the surface roughness indicates the plastic deformation due to the contact between the cutting tool and the workpiece. This plastic deformation is having waviness, and this surface irregularity in form of plastic deformation is known as surface roughness. We have to characterize this also. Phase analysis is part of a microstructure analysis. In case of phase analysis, we can say it is homogeneous portion of the system which is having distinct physical and chemical constitution. And if we compare phase analysis with the term microstructure, then we can say microstructure is a bigger domain. In this phase of material will come into picture. So microstructure is an umbrella in which phase analysis will come. The last point under the material characterization category is nature of residual stress. Intentionally, I have kept this in red color font, because if we look into these 5 elements of material characterization like microstructure, micro hardness, surface roughness, phase analysis, and nature of residual stress, then residual stress is very detrimental for health of the material. If we consider the human body, then we can say heart failure is very detrimental for the human body. Similarly, we can say that induction of tensile residual stress is very much detrimental to the health of the material, whether you are getting the material from a dealer or whether you have converted the material into some useful object by using any process. If it is having tensile residual stress, it will be act as a heart failure for the material. The material will not be able to perform its service life continuously. In between the service life of the material, it will fail if it is having tensile residual stress. So we have to consider this factor with vital importance. That is why I have kept this in red color font. Now, why in manufacturing we have to deal with material characterization? In case of manufacturing, we can use various machine, various process, but is it required to go for material characterization in manufacturing? Let us have a look. Generally, we have to qualify the product through a quality control department. The quality control department assess the quality of manufactured product. Okay, when the quality control department assess the quality of the manufactured product, a term surface integrity is used to indicate the quality of the produced component. Surface integrity of a product is a set of various elements, and these elements are microstructure, hardness variation, surface roughness, phase analysis, and residual stress. So these elements of surface integrity are coinciding with the element of material characterization. That is why quality of the manufactured product can only be assessed by characterization of the material. Hence, material characterization is very much important in case of manufacturing engineering, because we cannot ship the produced component into the market or to the customer unless we are having the information about the quality of the manufactured product, and this we know only through the characterization. Various techniques are available to get the information about the quality or the surface integrity of the product. These techniques are very common. All of us know that conventional technique for characterization of material, or now I can say these techniques are useful for judging the quality of the manufactured product. So these techniques are optical microscope. It is used to analyze the microstructural state of the material, and typical range of cost of this optical microscope is 15 to 20 lakh rupees, and the time taken to metrography and to carry out the metrography analysis is 1 to 2 hours. Micro hardness variation can be assessed by using a equipment that is having name microstructure micro hardness tester. This micro hardness tester is also having cost around 50 to 20 lakh, and the time taken will be 30 minutes to 1 hour. Why this? Why 1 to 2 hours is there? Because we have to consider the polishing part also. We have to polish the sample using various emery paper. After completion of polishing process, we have to diamond polish, and then after diamond polish we have to etch the sample using the suitable etchant. So this total time of metrography analysis is around 1 to 2 hours. And in case of micro hardness testing, also we have to polish the sample. We have to polish the sample in case of micro hardness analysis. That is why the time taken will be 30 minutes to 1 hour. But in case of micro hardness variation or micro hardness analysis, there is no need for etching. Roughness tester is to check the surface texture or the surface texture or the quality of the surface in terms of surface irregularities. It is analyzed by an equipment that is having name TeleSurf. TeleSurf is a very common surface roughness tester, and Taylor and Hudson is a company that is very popular in manufacturing of this surface roughness tester. Its cost is around 3 to 10 lakh rupees, and time taken is very small. Within 10 minutes, we can get the information about surface roughness or surface irregularities. Whether we are interested in 2D time analysis or 3D analysis, it depends upon our research or analysis. If we are interested in 2D analysis, then time taken will be less than 5 minutes, but 10 minutes will be required if we are going for 3-dimensional analysis of surface irregularities by using this tester. X-ray diffraction technique. X-ray diffraction technique is very popular and well-established technique for phase analysis and to assess the magnitude of the residual stress and nature of the residual stress. Among these techniques, if we look into carefully, then we can say in case of optical microscope and in case of micro hardness testing, we have to go for polishing operation. In case of polishing operation, we have to use etchant, and this etchant is a chemical. The disposal of this chemical will create environmental issue. So these two techniques are not eco-friendly. In case of X-ray diffraction technique, that is used for analysis of phase or surface texture also or residual stress, this technique is very popular, I told you. But what is the disadvantage of this technique? It uses X-ray. A technique that is using X-ray is not good for human health, because we know whenever we go for X-ray examination of our chest or any of our body part for medical treatment, then the operator who is operating the X-ray machine or the medical specialist who is operating the X-ray machine, he cover his body with a kit so that he will not be exposed to the harmful effect of the X-ray. It indicates that X-ray are not good for human beings. So we can say this technique is also not environmental friendly, as well as this is also against the health of the human being. So what is the answer that we are having? And again, if we consider judging the quality of single one component, a single component quality I have to judge, then I will have to spend approximately 3 hours. This sum will be approximately 3 hours, as well as it will be around 2 crore rupees investment. So 2 crore rupees I have to spend and 3 hours for a single component. Now you can imagine if I am going for a mass production, then in case of mass production, number of component I am considering it is 5,000 component. Then 3 hours for each sample, it will not be justified in manufacturing. It will be against the economy. So if I consider the sampling also, sampling means I have to take a bunch of samples. That bunch of sample, if it is required 3 hours for a single sample, then again it is against the economy practice of the manufacturing unit, because the time taken is quite more. So what is the answer that we are having now? We have to replace this technique nowadays. Whenever we are going to submit a project proposal, जब भी हम submit करने जाते हैं किसी project proposal को, then whether it is a DST or whether it is a BARC, it is simply informed us that the project proposal should be environmental friendly. Okay, if we have to go for development of a product, then we have to say that it is a eco-friendly or environmental friendly. So we have to use a technique for material characterization that will be user friendly as well as it is eco friendly also. We have seen that the time taken, if we consider conventional technique like micro hardness tester, roughness tester, X-ray diffraction technique, if we consider the time taken, it is around 3 hours, and that is not possible in case of nowadays modern manufacturing industries practice, because we have to reduce the time. We have converted our conventional machining center into the CNC machining center by reducing the setup time or holding time. Similarly, we cannot devote such amount of time in quality control. So we have to consider one technique that is having name Barkhausen-Noyes technique. The technique, a single technique, can assess micro hardness, it can assess microstructure, phase analysis, even nature of residual stress and its magnitude. Qualitatively, it can inform. The time taken, it is very much interesting that the time taken to check all these is 5 minutes. The cost of the equipment is 50 lakhs. So what is the mechanism of characterization using Barkhausen-Noyes technique, that we will discuss later? But we got the answer of our question. We have reduced the time from 3 hours to 5 minutes. The cost is also very less, and most importantly, this technique is not using any harmful chemical like etchant in case of optical micrography, as well as it is not using any harmful ray like X-ray. It is simply based on magnetism, that we will see in later slides. Characterization technique, conventional characterization technique, if we look, then first inspection of the product. Whenever we are going to produce a component in machining shop, the first inspection is going to be by naked eye. The visual inspection assess the color of the component, whether it is having very dark thermal damage portion or not, whether the surface is smooth, whether the surface irregularities are minimum or maximum. That can be carried out by visual inspection. Then micro hardness testing, metallography analysis, and surface finish. These are required to check micro hardness variation, microstructure, and surface irregularities. X-ray diffraction technique uses a transmitter and a receiver as well as X-ray. So from transmitter, X-ray is transmitted to the workpiece. Then after refraction, after diffraction, they are received by a receiver, and this receiver inform about the magnitude of residual stress by using Brake's law. In megapascal, we get the magnitude and nature of residual stress, but the harmful factor is this: the use of X-ray. The use of X-ray is not desirable. Let us go quickly in manufacturing process, because our theme is application of material characterization in manufacturing process to check the quality. If we look into this term manufacturing, then it is simply conversion of raw material into a product by using any process, and there should be value addition. Until unless we are not having value addition, we cannot declare it is a manufacturing process. Suppose I am having a lump of iron, and with the help of some compression machine or compression die and punch, I have compressed this component like this, considering this is a very ductile material. So the conversion of shape is there, process is there, but this component after compression, it is not having any value. Its value is 0. So this is not the manufacturing process. But if I remove these lines by shaper, then I will get a rectangular piece. And this rectangular block I can use as a paperweight at least. In this case, value addition is there. So this will be a manufacturing process. Manufacturing process we can easily classify it into forming, metal addition, that is welding, soldering, brazing. Melting and solidification means casting process. And last one is metal removal. This intentionally I have kept in bold color, because if I consider manufacturing process as 100% proportion, then this portion takes major portion of manufacturing process. Global research or global study has indicated that 60 to 65% of manufacturing operations are carried out by metal removal category. It means machining category. So this is very important in manufacturing. And unfortunately, if I consider any metal removal process like drilling, like boring, like threading, like knurling, like turning operation, milling operation, shaping operation, in all these operations there is contact between the workpiece and the cutting tool, and large amount of heat is generated. Heavy plastic deformation, large amount of heat generation, it is not desirable. Why it is not desirable? Because it will change the property of the material non-uniformly, and this is not required by the customer. The non-uniformity in property is not good for a field application. In field application, the component will be exposed to the rainy condition, it will be exposed to the extreme cold condition and extreme summer condition also. If it is having non-uniform property, then definitely it will get failed during its service life. So we have to characterize the material before we have to serve it in field application, or before we supply it to the customer. Now we are having a technique, we are having some process, and we have came to know that the characterization is very important, because in any process, in metal removal category, these processes are there. You can think about any process: turning, shaping, milling, broaching, planing, gear manufacturing, thread cutting. In all these processes, heat is generated and plastic deformation occurs. And this limitation of metal removal process indicates that we have to use a characterization technique to assess the quality of manufactured product. Among these process, grinding process is very important, because this is the last machining process. It is the last tooling process. After completion of this process, we will get good surface finish. Surface finish will increase after grinding process, because we say it is a finishing operation. But remember, it is a finishing operation, but it comes under metal removal category. So it is the last process. I have considered this process only to highlight the importance of metal characterization. Okay. Grinding process is the last tooling process, and it governs the quality of component. I repeat, it governs the quality of component, because after this process the machining or the manufacturing part will get complete and the product will go to the quality control department. Unfortunately, what happens in grinding, let us have a quick look. Unfortunately, in grinding, this thing happens. This means generation of spark that we all have seen, and this spark is very detrimental. Considering turning process, shaping process, planning, drilling, milling, broaching, thread cutting, gear manufacturing, in these process spark is not generated, but only in last manufacturing process or last tooling process spark are generated. The process that is providing the high surface finish quality to the component, that process itself is generating spark. Spark means intense heat over the top surface of the component. This intense heat application over the top surface of the component will definitely create thermal damage, and it will definitely going to distort the quality of the manufactured component. Why this spark is generated? Let us find out the answer, then we will go about the material characterization. In grinding process, whenever there is contact between the grinding wheel and the workpiece surface, at that time without giving depth of cut, immediately at the contact we have seen spark is generated. So why this spark is generated in the grinding? This is the schematic diagram of a grinding wheel and workpiece. Grinding wheel is composed of a binder. It is also having abrasive grit and it is also having porosity. So grinding wheel is composed of binding material, abrasive grit and porosity. But remember, in grinding process, we do not declare that grinding wheel is a cutting tool. The cutting tool is abrasive grit, because these abrasive grit will come into contact with the top surface of the workpiece and they will participate in actual metal removal process. So these abrasive grit will act as a cutting tool. Whenever we are going to produce a cutting tool like single point cutting tool in case of turning or milling cutter or drill bit or shaping tool, we can change the shape of the cutting tool as well as we can control the geometry of the cutting tool as per our requirement. We have seen that in case of single point cutting tool, we can provide the positive rake, we can provide the negative rake, we can also provide the required clearance angle over the rake surface or flank surface as per our requirement. Same thing we can also govern in case of milling cutter, drill bit or shaping tool. But unfortunately, in the last machining process, we are using a cutting tool that is known as abrasive grit, and we are not able to control the geometry. Forget about the geometry. Even we are not able to control the shape of these abrasive grit. We are helpless to use a cutting tool that is having irregular shape and undefined geometry. But this is the limitation and we have to carry out the process with this limitation. So what happens in case of this abrasive grit of irregular shapes and geometry? They are used to remove the material in layer by layer fashion that you can see from the top surface. But still the question is this: why this heat is generated? Why heat is generated by abrasive grit? Let us first talk about something related to the tool geometry. I am considering a cylindrical workpiece. This cylindrical workpiece, the side view I am considering, a turning operation is carried out over this cylindrical workpiece. Single point cutting tool is making contact with the cylindrical workpiece so that the turning operation can be carried out. Single point cutting tool can be positive rake or negative rake. positive rake and negative rake. How we can declare it is a positive rake or negative rake? Don't look at the shape. Okay, shape की तरफ आप मत जाइए. अगर आपको लगता है कि you can identify this with the shape, then we have to use basic fundamental. The basic fundamental to declare positive rake or negative rake is what? First, we have to make a tangent at the contact point. This is the contact point. We have to make a tangent at the contact point. So this is the tangent at the cutting point, and this tangent is indicating the cutting velocity. In actual practice or in actual machining condition, the workpiece rotates in this direction. The rotational speed of the workpiece is known as the cutting velocity. So if I consider the direction of cutting velocity, it should be like this, in downward direction. But whenever we look into any textbook or research article or reference book, cutting velocity is always mentioned in upward direction like this. Why? Because during analysis of machining process, we assume that workpiece is stationary. This is the workpiece. We assume that workpiece is stationary and cutting tool is rotating like this. Okay, so that our analysis will be simplified. I am not going into detail of this merchant circle diagram or analysis of orthogonal cutting. Simply we are assuming that single point cutting tool is rotating, workpiece is stationary. That is why in reference article or research paper, this direction is always indicated by a top sided arrow. So after completion of this first stage, by indicating the direction of cutting velocity, we have to create a plane. How this plane is created? This plane is simply a plane that is perpendicular to cutting velocity. So this plane is perpendicular to cutting velocity. This plane is known as reference plane. Its definition is a plane that is perpendicular to cutting velocity. Now we have got two elements, cutting velocity and reference plane. The third element that we are having, it is the rake surface. The rake angle is angle of inclination between the reference plane and rake surface. Remember, angle of inclination between reference plane and rake surface is the angle of inclination of rake surface. So this angle is rake angle. Now, how we will decide it is positive rake and negative rake? This is the interesting fact. Always rotate the reference plane toward the rake surface. Always rotate the reference plane toward the rake surface. If this direction of rotation is clockwise, it is positive rake. If the direction of rotation is anti-clockwise, it is negative rake. Simple fundamental we have to keep in mind. Rotate the reference plane toward the rake surface. So in this case, this rotation is in this direction. This is the clockwise direction. So this angle is positive rake. Considering another example, the shape of the tool is like this. We will go by fundamental. First, we have to locate the contact point. This is the contact point. We have to draw a tangent to indicate the cutting velocity. So the tangent will indicate the direction of cutting velocity. After showing the direction of cutting velocity, we can easily locate the reference plane. This is the reference plane. It is a plane perpendicular to the cutting velocity. Rake surface location is here. In this case, again, we have to rotate the reference plane toward the rake surface to see whether it is a clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. If it is a clockwise direction rotation, then it will be a positive rake. But in this case, when we are rotating the reference plane toward the rake surface, it is a negative rake because it is anti-clockwise direction. So this anti-clockwise direction will indicate this is negative rake cutting tool. Positive rake cutting tool and negative rake cutting tools are very much popular in machining. Whenever we have to say the difference between positive rake cutting tool and negative rake cutting tool, we typically say that in case of negative rake cutting tool, large amount of cutting force are generated. Why large amount of cutting forces are generated in negative rake cutting tool? Somewhere I have seen it is more penetration area or more contact area. That is the reason for this more cutting force in case of negative ray cutting tool. But we have to look into the fundamental. We have to apply the physics fundamental to verify or to validate this fact that in case of negative rake angle, amount of cutting force will be large. Consider a chip. This is a chip. It is coming out from this workpiece material. So here it is the portion of the workpiece material, and after failure or after going through the shear mechanism, it will separate out from the workpiece material and it will flow over the rake surface like this. The direction of flow of chip has been indicated. Chip, when it is a part of the workpiece, it is having velocity v1, and when it is rubbing or when it is moving over the rake surface, it is having different velocity. That we know very well, chip velocity before cutting and chip velocity after cutting. So same designation I am using here. V1 is the velocity of chip before cutting and V2 is the velocity of chip after cutting. I am considering this as element of having mass m. This chip is having mass m, its mass is small m. V1 chip velocity before cutting, V2 chip velocity after cutting. In case of positive ray cutting tool, this is the schematic that I am getting. I am considering downward direction as positive and upward direction as negative. So in this case, V1 is also in downward direction, V2 is also in downward direction. The component is in downward direction. But if I consider same machining operation by using same workpiece, by using same process parameter, but I have simply replaced the positive ray cutting tool with negative ray cutting tool, then in this case, what will happen? The direction of flow of chip will change. It will be like this. Again, since process parameter workpiece is same, so the initial velocity will be V1, but the final velocity will not be V2. Definitely, it will be different. Suppose it is V3. So V1 is the chip velocity before cutting and V3 is the chip velocity after cutting in case of negative ray cutting tool. Considering the positive ray cutting tool, change in momentum is mv1. Momentum is product of mass and velocity. So the change in momentum will be mv1 minus mv2. We know very well that amount of force is directly proportional to momentum. So there is direct correlation between the force and momentum. In this case of positive ray cutting tool, change in momentum is mv1 minus mv2, and in case of negative ray cutting tool, change in momentum will be mv1 minus mv3. Why? Because this is downward direction and this is having upward component. Already I have taken this as negative and downward direction as positive. So I will have to write change in momentum as mv1 minus mv3. So what will happen? This amount will be definitely more than this. This amount will be more than this. So this will indicate that large amount of cutting force will be generated in case of negative ray cutting tool. Same principle is also used for this very essential step of manufacturing. Whenever we have to perform turning operation, जब भी हम turning operation perform करते हैं, we have to follow one guideline. What is that guideline? We have to ensure that the contact point will be exactly at the diametric plane. But why? हमसे कहा जाता है कि the contact point between the cutting tool and the workpiece, exactly it should be at the diametric plane, and this contact exactly at the diametric plane require hit and trial method, and it will also take lot of time. Okay, but why it is required? It is again related with the same fundamental that we have seen just now. Suppose the contact point is exactly at the diametric plane. for a machining operation, the supervisor or the manufacturing engineer told the machinist or the operator who is operating the lathe machine that you have to use a positive rake cutting tool, and that positive rake should be 10 degree. You have to perform this machining operation with the help of a positive rake cutting tool that is having 10 degree rake angle. So the operator has issued this tool from the tool shop, or he has received this from the dealer. So he has started his machining. First case I am considering, the contact point is exactly at the diametric plane. In this case, this will be the angle, rake angle. Rake angle is angle of inclination of rake surface from the reference plane. So the angle between the reference plane and rake surface is rake angle. So this rake angle will be exactly equal to the 10 degree. And this rotation, simply it is in clockwise direction. The direction of rotation of reference plane towards rake surface is in clockwise direction. So this will be a positive rake. But by mistake, if the operator is not making contact exactly at the diametric plane, then what will happen? There will be two cases. Either the contact point will be above the diametric plane, or it will be below the diametric plane. In each case, what will happen? The first case that I am considering, it is above the diametric plane. So I will apply the same fundamental. Okay. First, I have to locate the contact point. This is the contact point. Okay. At contact point, I will have to first draw a tangent to indicate the direction of cutting velocity. So this is the tangent at the contact point. It is indicating the direction of cutting velocity. When I am having direction of cutting velocity, I can simply locate the reference plane. It is a plane that is perpendicular to the cutting velocity. Now, what is happening after locating the reference plane? This angle between the reference plane and rake surface, this angle has increased. So I have got a tool that is having 10 degree rake angle, but by mistake I have shifted the location point. So I am performing the machining operation with a tool that is having large rake angle, positive rake angle. This large positive rake angle, maybe 15, and that is not desired by the supervisor or the manufacturing engineer, who has informed the operator that you have to carry out the operation with 10 degree rake tool. Unfortunately, what will happen when the contact point will be below the diametric plane? In this case, the diametric plane, the contact between the cutting tool and the workpiece is below the diametric plane. Fundamental I will follow. Again, I will draw a cutting velocity vector at the contact point. This is the direction of cutting velocity vector. I will have to draw reference plane. Reference plane is nothing. It is a plane that is perpendicular to the cutting velocity. So this is the plane. Just after locating the reference point, what is happening? I have to find out the angle, rake angle. Rake angle is angle of inclination of rake surface from reference plane. So this angle of inclination. Now, is it positive rake or negative rake? To judge whether it is a positive rake or negative rake, simply rotate the reference plane towards the rake surface. When I rotate this towards the rake surface like this, it is anti-clockwise direction. So this anti-clockwise direction is indicating I am performing a machining operation by a tool with negative rake. This may be minus 8 degree, but this negativity will increase the amount of cutting force, and this amount is not required by the engineer or the supervisor. So we have to always locate the cutting tool at the diametric plane. Positive rake and negative rake, we have seen the cutting force is quite more in case of negative rake. That we can also see in this video clip. It is showing the machining operation using the positive rake cutting tool and negative rake cutting tool. This is the machining operation by a cutting tool that is having positive rake, and this is performing by negative rake. Just look into this region. you can see the amount of plastic deformation. In negative ray cutting tool, amount of plastic deformation is quite large. The thickness of the chip is large. Serration mark, you can see these are the serration mark, zigzag mark. So these are also very large, very significant in case of negative ray cutting tool. So we can say that cutting force is very large in case of negative ray cutting tool. Plastic deformation is very large in case of negative ray cutting tool. Hence, large amount of heat is generated, and this heat is not desirable. So why we are discussing with this positive rake, negative rake in this topic, in this talk? Because the heat generation or the spark generation in grinding is related with this fundamental. The fundamental that we have discussed just now regarding the negative ray cutting tool, it is mainly responsible for generation of spark in grinding process. When we provide the negative ray cutting tool over the single point cutting tool or milling cutter, then we keep the negativity in low range, typically minus 15 degree, minus 10 degree, minus 8 degree like this. Because higher negativity will indicate large amount of cutting force with significant plastic deformation. So we have to keep this in low range, generally below than minus 15 degree. What happens in case of grinding? To see or to explain, I am using a grinding wheel. This is the grinding wheel, and I am considering only a single abrasive grid. To explain the generation of spark, I am considering a single abrasive grid because it is acting as a cutting tool. It is acting as a cutting tool. So I am having a pyramidal shape cutting tool. Although the abrasive grids are having irregular shape, but experimental result and simulation result and their examination indicate they are having semi-pyramidal shape like this. So I am using a semi-pyramidal tool that is known as abrasive grid. So what will happen during machining? This is the workpiece. Again, I am applying the same fundamental. Workpiece is moving in this direction. Grinding wheel is rotating in this direction. So at the contact point, this is the contact point. At the contact point, this tangent will indicate the direction of cutting velocity. If the tangent will indicate the direction of cutting velocity, immediately I will get the reference plane. This is the reference plane. This plane is perpendicular to cutting velocity. So this plane is reference plane. Chip that will be generated during grinding, it will go like this. So this chip is flowing or rubbing over this face. So this face will be rake surface. Okay, so this surface is the rake surface. Velocity vector I am having, reference plane I am having. Same fundamental I am applying. Rotate the reference plane towards the rake surface. Rotate the reference plane towards the rake surface like this. If this direction is clockwise, it is positive. If this direction of rotation is anti-clockwise, it is negative. So now I can declare it is a negative rake. And this negativity I cannot control, nobody can control, because these are irregular shape abrasive grid, and experimental result indicated that this negativity is very high, approximately around minus 60 degree. So you are using a cutting tool in grinding that is having negative rake cutting tool, and its negativity is very high, approximately minus 60 degree, and you are helpless to use this because you cannot reduce this. That is why large amount of spark is generated in the top layer of the workpiece, and this spark will damage the top layer of the workpiece, and we have to characterize this top layer because now the component will be shipped or it will be transferred or it will be supplied to the customer. So our task is to analyze the top surface that has got the thermal damage because of the spark of grinding. So why this characterization is required? Because intense heat has changed or altered the material property at the top surface. In this schematic, again we can see abrasive grid, cutting velocity, reference plane, rake surface. This angle, now you can see this angle is quite negative. This large negative rake angle leads to large cutting force, and this will generate heat. And that is not desirable. Heat can be transferred to various nearby components. The heat will first transfer to the workpiece. Heat is generated mainly because of the large amount of cutting force, because of the negativity. Other component that will produce the heat in grinding, shear is there, friction is there, separation is there. Why shear is there? Why shear will come into picture? If I consider any machining process, whether it is a milling, drilling, shaping, turning, always remember the compression start the machining process. Almost all sided compression, but we generally say it is the shear failure of the material. हम क्यों कहते हैं कि material का जो फेल हुआ है वो shear में हुआ है? Why this shear failure comes into picture? Consider drilling, milling, shaping, even turning operation. Always it is the compression. It is almost all sided compression of the workpiece material arrested by the cutting tool. So it is a compressive stress, but we declare it is a failure due to shear. Why? Because whenever we are going to apply force over any material, जैसे ही हम force apply करते हैं, all types and all kind of stresses are generated inside the material. On x-axis, I am considering applied force. On y-axis, I am considering material property. In material property, I am counting compressive strength, tensile strength, and shear strength. When I apply force over any material, if I apply the force by my hand also, then also the material will resist in form of development of stresses. These stresses will be different type. Shear stresses will be generated, compressive stress will be generated, tensile stress will be generated, and their magnitude will increase with increase in load. So first I am considering shear stress. Shear stress, suppose this is the variation of shear stress. This is the variation of shear stress. Shear stress. Tensile stress will also generated. Suppose this is the tensile stress. Compressive stress will also generated. Suppose this is the compressive stress. The failure will be there when the shear stress or tensile stress or compressive stress, whenever it is going to meet the shear strength, tensile strength or compressive strength. Now look into this figure carefully. What is happening? The shear stress this shear stress and this shear strength. This point, shear stress is matching with shear strength of the material. So I will say that suppose this is 120 Newton load. So at 120 Newton load, the first shear stress will meet the shear strength. So the failure will occur because of the shear stress. Because tensile stress will meet the tensile strength. It is a point, suppose it is 200 Newton. And this point, when the compressive stress will meet the compressive strength, this point will be 400 Newton. This point will not reach because the failure will already occur, because shear stress will meet the shear strength of the material earlier, at rapid rate. That is why we declare that it is the shear failure of the material in machining. The heat that is generated in grinding, it may go towards the abrasive grid because it is in direct contact. Some amount of heat will be carried out by the chip itself. Coolant and environment will also take some amount of heat, but remember something, it is the transfer of heat toward the workpiece. In grinding, the heat is transferred to the workpiece significantly. Major portion of this heat, you can see the size of the arrow. The size of the arrow indicates that large amount of heat is generated, and this large amount of heat, major portion of this heat goes to the workpiece, and this will change the structure of the top layer, and that is not desired. So we have to characterize. Abrasive grid, typically we use alumina or silicon carbide, and they are having poor thermal conductivity. The thermal conductivity of alumina and silicon carbide is poor, so they will not take large amount of heat. Very less amount of heat will be transferred in the abrasive. Hence, the large amount of heat that is to be transmitted into the workpiece, it will damage the workpiece detrimentally. And this heat, this grinding heat, will cause generation of elevated temperature in form of thermal damage. Considering this is a grinding machine, this is a grinding machine, workpiece, rectangular workpiece I am considering. So I can say that surface texture will change, residual stress because of the thermal damage, residual stress of tensile nature will be generated. Microstructure will be different. At the top surface, microstructure will be retained martensite or retained austenite, and bulk material is having different. Whenever we say the top layer is having martensite, it is evil. It is not good. Martensite is very brittle layer. If the top surface is having martensite layer, and that is very hard and brittle layer, so the chances of crack formation will be more. And if the crack will be generated in a brittle surface, then their propagation will be very easy. In brittle material, crack propagation will be easy because brittle materials are characterized by not having enough internal energy to arrest the propagation of crack. They are not able to arrest the propagation of crack. So in brittle material, crack will be immediately transferred to the bulk material or deeply. Micro hardness variation will be there because at the top surface we are having different microstructure. Cracks will be there. And now we came to know because of the heat, thermal damage, tensile residual stress will be generated. Hence, to assess these, we have to characterize the material. Various scientists who are working in the area of assessment of residual stress, they have clearly declared that in case of grinding, tensile residual stress is typically generated, and that is the main problem in grinding. Because the induction of tensile residual stress will detrimentally reduce the static strength as well as fatigue life of the product. This reduction in static strength and fatigue life of the product will ensure that the material will fail before completion of its service life. Sometimes this failure is catastrophic in nature, and that will be very detrimental for the human life. It will sometimes create greater loss to the human life if we are considering the railway track or railway bridges. So, if we look into the lecture till now, we can say that characterization at micro level is required in manufacturing because grinding is the last tooling process, and this last tooling process generates spark, heat. This heat will damage the top surface. The top surface is having thickness micro level or macro level, whatever it may be, micro level or macro level. But our aspect is we have to characterize the component to supply this into the market. Unfortunately, grinding process is the last tooling process, and it is very much required to assess the correct quality by characterizing the material at macro level and micro level. And just now we have seen that because of the tensile residual stress, workpiece static strength and fatigue strength will get reduced because it is detrimental. Why tensile residual stress is detrimental? क्यों tensile residual stress detrimental है? Material, whether it is age received material or it is processed material, it is having irregularities, it is having porosity, it is having cracks at surface level, it is having voids also. So these surface irregularities or these irregularities inside the material, they will create the problem. Why they will create the problem? Because if the component is having tensile residual stress, it means it is in stretch condition. This stretch or this tensile nature will elongate the crack, it will elongate the void, it will elongate the porosity. When they will get enlarged, then definitely the fatigue strength or static strength of the material will get reduced. So this is very detrimental for the service life of the component. We have to assess tensile residual stress, we have to assess micro hardness variation, we have to also assess microstructure. But we came to know that conventional techniques are not good because they are not user friendly, they are not eco friendly, and they are costly also, they are time consuming also. So the solution that we were having for characterization of material, it is Barkhausen-Noyes technique. So now I am going to discuss about Barkhausen-Noyes technique. This technique is based on magnetism. So let us start with magnetism so that we will discuss effectively the Barkhausen-Noyes technique. In case of magnetism, we know permanent magnets are there. Permanent magnets are available in rectangular shape. They are also available in horse shoe shape and also in needle shape. They are characterized by north pole and south pole. And permanent magnet produce magnetic field. The magnetic field is having boundary. In this boundary, only in this boundary, the effect of magnetic field can be felt. If a component, iron component, is beyond the boundary, then it will not be affected or attracted toward the magnet. But what will happen if the component will be inside the boundary, then this will be attracted toward the permanent magnet. So this boundary in which the magnetic field can be felt, this boundary is having name magnetic domain. So this domain wall is the boundary of effect of magnetic field. In case of permanent magnet, we cannot control, we cannot change the strength of the magnetic field. But if we are considering the electromagnet, then in case of electromagnet, we can change the strength of the magnetic field. Considering this as a conductor, current I is flowing. If current I is flowing, then it will produce magnetic field also. That will be circular. Okay. So I can say that flow of electric current will produce magnetic field. The magnetic field is always perpendicular to the direction of flow of current. Here also you can see this is the direction of flow of current. Again, whenever I will switch on the light, magnetic field will be generated. So I can say that current is producing magnetic field. What is current? Current is flow of electron. Current is flow of electron. So the flow of electron will create magnetic field, that we can say now. Any flow of electron will create magnetic field. Remember, in material, electron is moving around the nucleus. We know, since this is also motion of electron, so this will again create magnetic field. This magnetic field can we see? In microstructure analysis, we use optical microscope. By using the optical microscope, we can see the grain boundary, we can see the microstructure. Can we see the magnetic field? Yes, we can see the magnetic field. This is the real image of magnetic field. You can see this is the boundary. Black feature is indicating the boundary. Boundary means domain wall. So these magnetic field, they are orientated in the random orientation. You can see into this figure clearly, they are randomly orientated. This random orientation is required because they have to nullify the magnetic field of neighbor. Schematic diagram is also indicating random orientation of magnetic domain inside the material. Magnetic field is a vector quantity, we know. That is why arrow denotes the direction of magnetic field. Here you can see this is the direction of magnetic field of this magnetic domain. This is the magnetic domain wall of this domain, and this is. So they are randomly oriented. But if I disturb these by applying external magnetic field, then they will try to align themselves. They will try to align themselves in the direction of magnetic field to achieve the stability criteria. Everyone want to be stable in life. So domain will also want to be stable. So to acquire the stability, they align themselves in the direction of magnetic field. This is again the image of magnetic domain captured by magnetoforce microscopy. Instrument is there that is having name magnetoforce microscopy. With the help of that instrument, we can capture the magnetic domain. So magnetic domain will move when we apply external magnetic field, that we can see. During 12th class, when I was studying in 12th class, a experiment was conducted. It was in our curriculum. A permanent magnet was there and ammeter was there, milliammeter was there. We have to keep the magnet in our. We have to. We have to keep the magnet in our one hand and we have to keep the ammeter in our hand. Okay. When I move the permanent magnets toward the, remember, there is no wire connection. There is no connection between this permanent magnet and this ammeter. When I move this permanent magnet toward the ammeter, the needle of the ammeter reflect. Okay. When I move this away from the ammeter, again this needle will move. So what I can say, fundamental say, whenever moving magnet is there, whenever magnetic field moving is there, whenever there is a moving magnetic field, the motion of magnetic field will generate a signal that we can clearly validate with the use of this small experiment, ammeter and magnet. So motion of magnetic field will generate a pulse, it will generate a signal. That signal will also be generated when we go through this phenomena. So in this case, these motion of magnetic domain, when they will try to align themselves in the direction of magnetic field, this motion will generate a magnetic field, a signal, and this signal can be captured by a sensor in form of a signal. So this is the block diagram. Whenever we apply external magnetic field, it will cause change in global magnetization. This change in global magnetization indicate the motion of the domain wall. The motion of the domain wall indicate the motion of magnetic field. This magnetic field motion will indicate generation of electric pulse, and this electric pulse can be easily sensed by using a sensor in form of a signal. And this signal is very important of component or by checking the microstructure, micro hardness and residual stress. Old doctor used to check the health of the patient by checking the pulse of right hand. Similarly, we can use this signal by checking the health of the material or for characterizing the material. How we can use this signal for characterization of material? This signal was first seen by Professor H.G. Barkhausen. He was German professor and he initially detected this signal with the help of loudspeaker. So this signal is known as Barkhausen and the noise word is coming from loudspeaker. This initial experiment is available on the Google. You can have a look into this experiment if you type in the Google or YouTube initial experiment of Professor Barkhausen setup. So you can demonstrate this experiment in UG class also, or in PG class you can give a project using this experimental setup. So this signal is Barkhausen noise signal. For analysis purpose, we need some parameters. So we have to envelop this signal Generally, we envelop the signal by using a curve. So this is the curve, red color curve, and this curve is used for analysis. How? This curve will analyze the material. On x-axis, I am having applied magnetic field. So this is the input. This is the input. And on y-axis, I am having the Barkhausen noise signal. Barkhausen noise signal amplitude. So this amplitude of Barkhausen noise signal will be on y-axis. This is the envelope. The envelope is having various parameters like its root mean square value, or peak position. First, I am considering RMS value. The RMS value is a magnetic property because it is a magnetic signal. This RMS property is directly related with the residual stress. The peak value means this point. The peak value or amplitude indicates the hardness and grain size. And similarly, the peak position will indicate the microstructure. I am considering two examples. Suppose I am having two components. One component is A, another component is B. A component hardness is HC 19, suppose, and its hardness is 25. So it is having large hardness. Hardness means grain boundary, grain size. So it is having more grain boundary. Grain boundary means hurdle to the motion of domain wall. When more hurdle will be there to the motion of domain wall, then the signal will reduce. So I will get a smaller signal if the hardness is more. Similarly, peak position means position of this peak at x-axis. This will indicate input. Applied magnetic field is the input. So if I am having two material A or B, it is having martensite structure and it is having ferrite structure. Suppose, okay, ferrite structure means soft magnetic and martensite means hard magnetic. So if the material is hard to magnetic, it will require more amount of input. Okay, so if I get the envelope from A and B, what will happen? Martensite will produce this type of envelope. So by getting the information from shift in peak position, I can identify the microstructure also. So with the help of this technique, we can identify microstructure, we can identify micro hardness also. Barkhausen noise signal is magnetism based phenomena, and magnetism also correlated with the hysteresis loop that we can see. So hysteresis loop is also generated during the magnetism effect. Whenever I am going to magnetize any material, I will have to apply magnetic field. When I apply magnetic field, these domain of material, they will try to align themselves. So the magnetization will get increased like this. This motion will increase the magnetization inside the material, but what will happen if I reduce the magnetic field? From this point, if I reduce the magnetic field, this path will not be followed. Initial path, the path will be like this. This path will be like this. And if I again increase the magnetic field, I will get this path. So this magnetization process and this demagnetization process will create a loop, and this loop is known as hysteresis loop. Hysteresis loop is indicating the magnetic property, and these magnetic property we can correlate with the mechanical property. How? First, consider the generation of Barkhausen noise signal and hysteresis loop. Considering this x-axis as applied magnetic field, it is the input, and this is the output. Generation of Barkhausen noise signal is the output. the motion of domain wall inside the material completes in 3 stages. What are those stages? We can have a look. Permanent magnet I am considering a permanent magnet, and I am considering example of all pin. The all pin is having head and tail portion. This all pin, when it will come into the effect of magnetic field, what will happen? This all pin will get elongated. So this is the elongation of magnetic domain. And remember, this A to B portion, is indicating the elongation. So for this elongation, I have to apply this amount of input, and I am getting this much only output. Generation of Barkhausen noise signal is this much. But magnetic domain movement, this is the domain wall movement. This domain wall movement is occurring from B to C, and this will require only this much input. So I can say this much input will generate this large portion of the Barkhausen noise signal. And the third one is the rotation. You have also seen that when alpin will touch the magnet, it will not remain in this position. It will rotate itself and it will make full contact with the permanent magnet. So this is known as rotation. The rotation is from C to D, and this C to D, you can see this C to D is having this much amount of input, and it is generating this much amount of signal. So I can say that B to C is the magnetic domain wall movement, and this is mainly responsible for generation of Barkhausen noise signal. If I apply more amount of energy to this B to C portion, the signal level will rise. Okay. Hysteresis loop characteristics like remanence or coercivity, and one more property hysteresis loop is having, that is permeability. Permeability is the slope of tangent at this knee. These intersection points with x-axis and y-axis, they will indicate remanence, coercivity, and the slope of the tangent at the knee of hysteresis loop will indicate permeability. These property, coercivity, remanence, and permeability, they will give mechanical property. Okay, so we can assess the material, we can characterize the material by using magnetic property easily, and this technique is safe also. For residual stress, remember the residual stress is very detrimental. We have seen that tensile residual stress should not be there. If tensile residual stress are there, they are detrimental. So we have to assess the residual stress. X-ray diffraction technique is there. Tensile residual stress is very much detrimental. Why? Because it will enlarge the irregularities present in the material like this. The principle of magnetization that we have discussed. Now, in form of block diagram, I have put the complete process. The principle of magnetization says when I apply external magnetic field, it will supply magnetization energy for the magnetic domain wall motion. And this motion is carried out in 3 stages. The first stage is elongation of domain wall. The second is movement of domain wall. And third one is the rotation of domain wall. So we can say that magnetization energy will be distributed in 3 components: elongation, magnetic domain wall movement, and rotation. How it will be used for assessment of residual stress? Same diagram I am considering, same block diagram I am considering, but I told you that if the material is having tensile residual stress, porosity will increase, crack will increase, voids will increase. But remember, this tensile residual stress will not be biased. ये differentiate नहीं करेगी कि मेरे को void को elongate करना है और I have to only elongate the porosity. It will elongate each and everything. Each and everything means it will also elongate the domain wall. If domain wall is present inside the material, domain wall will also be stressed or elongated by tensile residual stress. So this portion of domain wall motion will be executed by tensile residual stress. So if I am having 2 components, A and B, A is not having grinding operation and B is having grinding operation, what will happen if I get the Barkhausen noise analysis of A sample? In A sample, this energy portion will be there. But if I apply Barkhausen noise analyzer on B, then on B, this elongation part has been carried out by tensile residual stress. So same energy will be used for domain wall movement, and this domain wall movement will get more energy. So Barkhausen noise signal will be more. Schematic diagram indicates that tensile residual stress will increase the Barkhausen noise signal level. This is the Barkhausen noise signal level from edge received material or stress-free component. If it is having compressive residual stress, then definitely the level of Barkhausen noise signal will significantly reduce. So by using this technique, we can also assess the residual stress. This is the actual image of Barkhausen noise analyzer. This is a portable equipment. Its weight is around 5.7 kg. So I can say it is a portable equipment, and this schematic indicate that this depth of penetration, I can change because magnetic field is governed by frequency, and higher the frequency, lesser the depth. Frequency is inversely proportional to depth. So by changing the frequency of magnetic field, I can assess the depth. So micro level characterization, macro level characterization can be carried out using this technique. X-ray diffraction technique. This is the X-ray diffraction technique. X-ray diffraction technique is a standard practice for assessment of residual stress, but in this case we use X-ray, and by using X-ray and Drake flow we can find out the magnitude of residual stress. But this technique is not eco-friendly, and this is a laboratory based technique. It takes lot of amount of time. 56 minutes is typically required to scan a sample in X-ray diffraction machine. Sample size is limited. Typically 35 gram sample is to be mounted. 35 or 36 gram sample is to be mounted on the holder of machine. The measurement depth is less. Technique is expensive. 1 crore rupees is the equipment cost, and this technique is not non-destructive in nature. On the other hand, Barkhausen noise technique provides faster measurement, portability of equipment is there, and this is eco-friendly because only magnetic field is used, and magnetic field is not harmful for the operator or the user who is using this Barkhausen noise analyzer. We can change the depth of measurement. How we can change? Because the depth of penetration of magnetic field is governed by this mathematical expression. In this mathematical expression, only the magnetic frequency is there. So by using this magnetic frequency, I can change the depth of penetration as per my requirement or as per my wish. I can increase the magnetic frequency or I can decrease the magnetic frequency. By increasing and decreasing the magnetic frequency, I can change the depth of penetration. These are the screenshot of Barkhausen noise analyzer. You can see hysteresis loop is there, hysteresis loop property is there, RMS peak value, peak position of Barkhausen noise signal is there, and they are having direct correlation with the mechanical property. So we can characterize the material using this magnetic technique, and that is very much popular. Nowadays it is a emerging technique. This technique is available in India at BARC Mumbai. IIT Kharagpur is also having this technique. Our institute has recently procured this technique. So if you are having any query, you can ask, you can raise your query now. And this technique our department is having. If you have to use this technique, you can contact me. My email ID, my contact address is available at my website, my institute website. So now if you are having any confusion, you can raise your confusion. Just a minute. Some message is there. Sorry for this mistake. It was not it is.
Sir, it is not for you, sir.
Okay. Not okay. Yes.
Any questions for sir? Any questions? Anyone has any doubts? You're free to ask, sir.
Okay, if you are having any other confusion after completion of this FDP, you can also contact me regarding this technique. Okay, my official email ID is there.
So please provide your email ID and in the chat section also.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming here and giving your talk and giving your valuable time to us and
Thank you.
giving insights on machining processes also and how it can be characterized, how different materials can be characterized according to the type of material. Actually, we are thinking from the perspective of only metals and alloys, and we are not going into much consideration for the coating materials and the composite materials and their processing and their manufacturing techniques, particularly their cutting techniques we are not going through. So that is very important when we are discussing about those things, those rectangles in composite materials and coating materials, particularly because it is very hard to work on them. So uh, that was very informative, sir,
Thank you.
particularly for me. Thank you. Anyone else has any questions?
I think all those are good observer.